Hey YouTube, how's it everybody tonight? Oops, wrong one. I need a sound engineer. There we go. We got that sound. Hey, thanks so much for checking in. And I don't have anyone viewing right now. What I wanted to do is do a companion video to the premiere that I just broadcast of the Night Owl Star Party, which was an inaugural event held at the Experience Learning Center, and that is a center that the Northern Virginia Astronomy Group has really built a very strong relationship with. That facility is really engaged in education and outdoor activities. And hey, Tim, thanks for joining us. I'm I'm wiped out from the weekend, so it's great to see you. And I hope all is well with you. I'm actually set up in the backyard, imaging, capturing some hydrogen alpha data on SH2-155 or the Cave Nebula. I think I'm getting close to getting all of the data that I want on that. So what we wanted to do tonight is just show, I really was hoping for an engaging environment. That's really what I would like to be, like to find out. Okay, yeah. Yeah, go check out the video. It's about 8 minutes long. I tried to present, this is again Tim's messaging me about the Night Owl Star Party and the video that I just premiered. And it was an effort to give you a sense of the area of the Monongahela National Forest, the Spruce Knob area Experience Learning Center. We had about 3 out of 4 good nights, and like I said, the Northern Virginia Astronomy Group has been very active in establishing a working relationship during new moon periods with the Experience Learning Center. There is reservations for the club members to be up there on new moon weekends. And of course, if you don't know, Spruce Knob is a Bortle 2 site, one of the best in the eastern U.S. And if you are an astronomer, a visual astronomer, a photographic astronomer who will go outside under a dark sky, Spruce Knob needs to be on your list to check out. You can go to the summit and to the parking area at the summit. The challenge at the summit is it's about 500, maybe as much as 800 feet above where Experience Learning Center is. If you watch the premiere video, I have a drone shot from the road that gives you an idea how the Experience Learning Center sits just below the summit of Spruce Knob. Well, that summit is notoriously windy, and in the parking lot at the summit, what you generally have to do is there are enough tall pines to provide some pretty nice wind shelter, but those pines are going to shelter you from roughly 30 to 40% of the sky that you're trying to shield yourself from the prevailing winds. So you have to make a decision throughout the night generally that what part of the sky are you going to sacrifice for the protection against the prevailing winds. And they can be very intense up there. We're talking steady winds in the 20-mile-an-hour range and gusts 40 miles an hour. So you can have a calm evening, but that's what Experience Learning Center offers. It's just below the summit. While it can be windy, it is nowhere near what the summit of Spruce Knob is. So I hope you have a chance to check out that video. It's called the Night Owl Star Party. This was put on by the Experience Learning Center. They are starting to engage in more of their own events since COVID has really drastically reduced the number of organizations holding events at their at their facility, they're engaging in their own, and many times they mimic the events that were being held by the other organization. So I don't think they're trying to step on any toes here. They're just trying to fill some gaps, and I encourage them to continue to do so. It's a fantastic facility and actually one of my favorite places on earth to attend. So if you saw the video, reflecting on it, I just realized without planning that I had engaged in about 6 to 7 unique photographic approaches for this, what turned out for me a 4-day weekend, a 4-night, might have been five nights. It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday night. It was 5 nights, 4 of which had useful imaging time. One was a total washout, and I went to Elkins and watched Shang-Chi at the theater. So that's about an hour and 20-minute drive to get off of the summit and into the town of Elkins. Elkins lies northwest of Spruce. With low clouds, you can see lights from Elkins, but most clear nights, it's not a factor. So we had about 6 to 7 unique imaging approaches. So let me pull up here the screen time plus FaceTime. I might just do the screen capture. There we go. And let's get into Photoshop. And if I had anyone online, what I was hopeful for is that somebody would be on here saying, hey Jeff, how'd you do this image, or what were some of your techniques? So this image that hopefully you're seeing here is the star trail, and this was my first night, Thursday night. I went up a night early because the forecast was just looking fantastic for Thursday night. The star party itself did not start until Friday night. This is the finished version. This is what happens. I'm on an iMac, and I use a program called Star Stacks, and I had actually 2 sets of stars stacked here. I don't want to spend a lot of time searching through files, and I've got a ton of data already open here. But what happened is my battery died. I think I was using the Canon RP this night. Now this is with the 20mm f2 Sigma art lens. And I think I was doing 30-second exposures here, probably at ISO 800-ish. And this is what Star Stacks puts together. Now I had the battery die mid-exposure, and in changing the battery, I actually altered the camera's field of view a bit. So what I had to do is I had to merge 2 stacks, and I had to manually align the second stack to the first stack to get this full representation. So as you can see, I had a car come through the parking lot that illuminated these trees. And then this is my finished product. What I generally do is overlay a foreground that does not have that car light in the foreground. And so that's all legit. This is just a standard foreground exposure, and this is about 4 hours, I think, 4 to 5 hours of star trails. I took these star trails while I was gathering narrowband imaging on my SATER image. Now, Star Stacks will do a little bit of a fill the gap. It's not perfect if you really zoom in. That's at a zoom of 294%. But for most purposes, it works out well. And so I basically just applied a little bit of a contrast, a little bit of color saturation in the stars. I obviously cleaned up a lot of airplane trails and some satellite trails. And if you really want to get a feel for geostationary satellites and how common they are in our sky and where they kind of reside, star trails are a great way to do it. You can see some of the geostationary points within the star trail, or how much they might drift over a period of 4 to 5 hours. Yeah, the lens distortion isn't bad, Tim, with that 20 millimeter. And of course, Adobe Lightroom, I do all corrections before going into StarStack into Adobe Lightroom. And I'm afraid to open up Lightroom because I have so much data open now during my broadcast. I'm afraid I might crash my iMac. So I'm not going to open up Lightroom, but I basically just apply the lens correction that Lightroom already has built in for the lens specifically. And it's not bad. This is more or less just really reflecting the angular movement of the stars across the sky. You know, here at the around 0 degrees declination. It's probably right here. That's just Jupiter. Oops, right here. And you can see some. I didn't really do anything with color. I do like a little bit of blue to the sky in most of my what I would call nightscape images, star images in the landscape. But now, Tim, when I had a 14 millimeter Roking on, that one really had some pretty significant lens distortion. And in addition, I think this was the RP because I was using the RA to try to do another project. That is a panoramic Milky Way with the Milky Way pretty much going up through the zenith. This is really challenging. I did not get enough data. This is about 2 rows of about 10 to 11 images, and I shot these vertically. So if you can imagine this, that the vertical frame would be about like this, and I believe there were about 10 or 11, but I still did not cover the full area needed to get a really nice clean. This is, I think I was attempting to do a rectilinear panoramic presentation here. It came close. You can see it really came close. I had a lot of distortion here on the edges with the trees because these are very close to me, but I got the Milky Way looking pretty much like I wanted, but I just lacked some of the foreground. You could do some fill here with either trees or stars. I really try to avoid that because it starts to look unnatural really quickly. And I like to be pretty faithful to my images. What ISO with the Milky Way? Let me see here. I'm going to go ahead and open up Lightroom. Hopefully it doesn't crash us. And then I could better answer your question. Let's see what we're getting into here. If I can find that in the library real quick. I probably, with that Milky Way, 1600 is a common default for me. Let's see if I can find it. I'm not the best at managing my Lightroom library. I'm still here. Stick with me. That's a Milky Way time lapse. There are a lot of I need to really do better with my Lightroom library management. Here we go. Okay, there's the Canon RA. Okay, so that gets into some of our other images. I think I was using the Canon RP. That's the row of Fucus. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So here's our Milky Way, and you can see the frames. There are 24, no way, even more than that, 25 total frames that came into use here. And then let's just see what we used here. I used a 6400 ISO with a 20 millimeter at f2 for 13 seconds. 13 seconds is generally a rough, rule of, what's the rule? Rule of 250 for minimizing star trails within an exposure. So this is a raw, that's a raw Milky Way exposure, and you can see the star trailing is really pretty minimal when you zoom in. The lens is good. The best lens I have is the 85 millimeter f1.4 and the Sigma Fine Art and the 135 Rokinon f2. That thing is amazing, both of those lenses. But this is a nice lens. So those are the wide ISO in the Milky Way. In the Bahamas, I could use 3200 versus 400 at home with it. Yeah. A dark sky, you can extend either with, of course, time is going to be limited whether you're using a tracker or not. And I'm going to get into tracking Milky Way because that's another technique that I used. Now these are all tripod. This is just a tripod stacked, and you can see it's about 26 images. So I tried to get 2 vertical rows. This is the center of the panoramic. I still just did not capture enough total frames, and you can see where I fell short with Photoshops. I downloaded PT GUI. I used PT GUI years ago. Heck, I did manual alignment of panoramas in Photoshop years ago. I'm that old. But PT GUI did a better job. But PT GUI is like $130, and I just didn't think it was worth paying for it for what was not necessarily a portfolio print image, just a nice image. But this is the challenge of having the Milky Way high overhead. It's a wonderful thing to do. I've even looked at the Rokinon fisheye lens. I think I might pick that up. It's very affordable. But yeah, none of these from Seneca Rocks were tracked. But so this is an attempt at a panoramic 2-row stitched Milky Way, high arching Milky Way, which was very challenging over Seneca Rocks. This is a star stack image of about 4 hours at 30 seconds an image. So I don't know, it's like 200 images, I think. Brought into star stacks. You can check your own version for the Microsoft. So that's 2 techniques. Now, the third technique I was doing at Seneca that night was the narrowband data, and I'll get to that here in a second. So let me see if I have that one open. Okay, this is just a standard tripod Milky Way, 13 seconds, 4 or 5 images stacked in a program called Starry Landscape, I believe is the one I use on the Mac. Here you go. Starry Landscape Stacker. You've got Sequator on Windows. You can take multiple images, try to stick to that 13-second to minimize your star trails. And then you can stack those with Starry Landscape Stacker, freeze the foreground. It gets a little challenging in forming a mask around a tree with branches like this. It can be done. It takes a little bit of hand masking to really work this out well. But you can stack the images. It creates a cleaner image. And this is very late in the evening with the Milky Way almost gone. And this is what happens when you get some low clouds. Elkins can light up the clouds. But I love this view. It's the view going to the main yurt. And it's a very common pathway, and this is just a great view at the sky. So this is a tripod multi-image stacking to minimize noise, help signal in the Milky Way. Then I tried my first tracking stacked sky replacement in Photoshop. Now, if you've watched my channel, we had a conversation in a photons to photos session where we didn't really debate, but we had a discussion about the ethics, if we want to call that, or guidelines about sky replacement. And here's where I come down on it. I literally took these two shots within an hour of each other, and I shot the Milky Way. Let me show you how this is done. How crazy is that? That is the original shot of the tree with clouds coming in. And as you can see here, the stars are trailing. But I took the exposure just for the foreground and for the tree, knowing that I had already tracked this image for the overlay. I tracked this on the Ioptron SkyGuider Pro with the Canon RA and the 20mm Sigma Art lens. And I think I went 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Let's see, while I got Lightroom open, we can go to the library. It might even be in this library right here. Thank you for being patient with me. Yeah, here we go. So these are the tracked, and this is a ISO 6400 20mm at 13 seconds. No, that's not the tracked. I think that's the tracked. 6400 13 seconds. Huh. Well, maybe that is. I thought I took a lot longer exposure for that. No, here's the tracked. Yeah, I knew it was different. Yeah, 2 minutes, f2.2, ISO 3200. So this is one of the tracks. Hey, Alan. Thanks for joining us. Just viewed the video. Beautiful and gives the feel for the location of the sky. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you writing that, and that was my intent with the video. And I really appreciate your comments, and thanks for joining us. So this is the track. Well, you can see if you go back and forth between those libraries, the benefit of a track. There's a tripod image, and there's a tracked image, and it's just so much more robust with the data. That's a 2-minute exposure at ISO 3200. So that's the data that I pull in, and I think I stacked probably 4 or 5 of those, and it really comes up with a beautiful tracked Milky Way. So back to the ethics or guidelines or whatever you want to call it about this, I think it's legitimate. You can see the Milky Way right here. And this is later in the evening from when I did my tracked exposures. And then sky replacement in Photoshop is so crazy. It literally is simply a click of a button. Excuse me while my cat is coming into the office. So if you ask me, I think this is a legitimate use of sky replacement. This image was taken this night from this location with the exact same camera and lens, just simply not with the tree. It was a clean horizon, so I don't have to have a blurred tree or a blurred piece of the landscape. I just focus on tracking the Milky Way, then overlay it in the what is nearly the exact position of the Milky Way from a tripod. So in my mind, that's legit. There's nothing wrong with that. Do I want to overlay this Milky Way image over a New York City landscape? To me, that starts to cross a line. But everybody's going to have their own line and figure out where that is. But so that's the third technique that I utilized on this weekend. So we've had panorama, tripod tracked. Tripod. Then we've had a tripod star trail. And oops, not that one. Oh, then we did a mosaic. This is a 4-frame mosaic with the 85 millimeter on the Canon RA. Let me see if I have this data pulled up in Lightroom quickly. As you can see, I did a lot of DSLR work at this. I did do one. So here is our panoramic stitching for the Cygnus. All of this you can see here, multiple frames. Get in on that. That was ISO 3200. Notice where the histogram is, 85 millimeter. I do stop that down to f2.2, and that was for a 90-second exposure, and that is on that Ioptron Skyguider Pro. Just simple polar alignment with the reticle. It's a beautifully portable and simple to use device. And look at the stars in this. That 85 millimeter is amazing. So that's one frame of that 85 millimeter. Let me show you kind of the money frame. That's the center. I'm trying to find the Cygnus where I started. And this is kind of the money frame with Satyr and North America Pelican region. So that's an idea of what one frame looks like. And 4 of those come together to form this image. Now what happened with this is that 3 of these images lined up and stacked very nicely with PixInsight. This upper quadrant here, which was my last image taken, really never lined up nicely with that software. Hey Alan, no, everything here, the only things I took from the Seneca Rocks parking lot were the star trails and the Milky Way panorama over Seneca Rocks. Now I did take some narrowband images that you'll see here in a second from that Seneca parking lot, which it's a great place to observe from. You do have some road traffic, and you could probably get, that parking lot is huge, and you could probably take one of the fingers of the parking lot and go to a deeper area and be off and away from the road traffic a little bit better than where I was. But I really had to find a spot where I could see the north pole, see Polaris, and that gets to be a little problematic in some of those parking lots. The trees go pretty high, especially to the north. Then everything else was taken from the Experience Learning Center during the Night Owl Star Party. So what I had to do with this upper quadrant that really just was being distorted wildly with PixInsight, I had to just manually force it. So it's a pretty clean merge. If you really looked closely, you might say, hey Jeff, this isn't quite lining up right. But I forced that fourth panel to give a Cygnus, a lot, not 100% of the Cygnus constellation, but a lot of it, and I just love the way this one turned out. So that's a 4-panel panoramic tracked DSLR 85mm lens. Then there was just a single 85mm. Oops, I don't think I have that one open. Let me see if I can open that. And I'm just going to open, I think, the JPEG here. Let's see what we got. Yeah, my system is really struggling. Let's see what this looks like. This might be close to the final. It's a Photoshop format. So this is an image I wanted to do for a long time, and from a dark sky, this is just begging to be done. Of course, this is in Taurus, with the Taurus dust between the Pleiades and the California Nebula here. And I can't remember what this NGC, I know this is an NGC area right here, but this is with that 85mm. I think it's in the Lightroom right here below. Same night. See, I had the Cygnus Mosaic, and this is what a raw file looks like. With California Pleiades, this was ISO 3200 at f2.2 for 90 seconds on that iOptron SkyGuider Pro. And I probably had, I think I got 2 hours on this. That's 357 up to it's almost one. That's like 90 images times. Yeah, it's about 2 hours, little over maybe. So that's the Cygnus California Taurus dust, and that's just a single frame tracked on the iOptron SkyGuider Pro. Now, the other thing I was working on up there was the narrow band. I really struggled with this narrow band image throughout the summer. And I learned a whole new technique from J.P. Mazzaveno. And this is the finished result. And I got a lot of this data from up at Seneca Rocks and also at the Experience Learning Center. So this is with the Astro-Physics 92mm, roughly 500mm focal length. And I don't know how much data I had, probably 4 to 5 hours on both the sulfur 2 and the O3. And of course, hydrogen alpha is utilized as the main luminance data. This is kind of what happens with a StarNet image with the hydrogen alpha, the O3, and the S2. My system is really slow. I hope this broadcast is staying on board here. And so that's the finished result. I don't want to get into a lot of the details of this process. I may one day put together a video, but I just started a new job which is very intense, and I'm probably not going to be producing a whole lot of videos here until about March. So, but this is the narrow band through the telescope monochrome camera, which is, I think, my 6th and final technique from the Night Owl Star Party that I just wanted to review with everybody. And I think it's a pretty unique experience when an astrophotographer goes to an event and puts together 6 or 7 images that utilized all unique techniques. And I'm here to help if somebody's looking to learn some of these. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I would rather this be much more one-on-one or engaging than me just talking to I mean, it's great. Thanks, Tim, and thanks, Alan, for contributing in the chat tonight. But I'd rather it be much more engaging and user oriented, because in astrophotography, so many people have such a wide range of experience and interest. Just look at this tonight, 6 different techniques, and you could specialize in any one of those and just do a full night or a full weekend or a full astrophotography expedition just orient around those techniques. One of the things I'm looking to do is for the eclipse coming up in 2 years, not the total eclipse, but the annular eclipse, which is out west and goes through so many cool national parks. I'm going to dedicate myself to just Milky Way in the landscape at just some iconic national park locations. So that's it for tonight. If no one has any other questions in the chat, that will wrap up this evening as a companion video to the Night Owl Star Party. The Star Party was really fantastic. I thought Experience Learning Center did a nice job. There were a lot of people from NOVAC who contributed. Oh, I forgot. I really wanted to mention this earlier. I want to give a big shout out to Dan Ward, who put together this binocular observing list. And I'm not sure how many people did it, but I completed it for the Night Owl Star Party. I used my trusty Canon image stabilized 15 by 50s. These things are fantastic. I have such a blast with these at star parties, and what Dan did with providing that list. I don't have it here, but I also bought Phil Harrington's binocular observing book because of Dan. So thank you, Dan. This was just such a fun activity. And where did I put that? Yeah, there were 20 objects. I worked on these really a little bit each night. So I got to tell you that, thank you, Dan. That was amazing. And if you go to a star party, I highly recommend that you either put together yourself or find someone who has put together a binocular observing list, because if you're an imager, what a great way to supplement your imaging time. And it just really enhances the experience of the star party. So thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who joined me in the live chat tonight. Thanks, Tim, and thanks, Alan, and thanks to NOVAC, and thanks to the Experience Learning Center. It was a great weekend, and I hope they do it, or that NOVAC is able to get the Almost Heaven Star Party back online. So, hey, don't forget, click like, subscribe, and thanks for joining me. Dan has been an advocate. Yeah. Thank you, Alan. 2 years ago. Glad you were able to accept challenge. Yeah, Alan, that was so much fun. And I sent a message to Dan thanking him so much for providing that. So definitely highly recommended. And if you have a club that has a binocular observing, of course, the Astronomical League has many observing challenges just for binoculars. I'm a huge advocate for that. So thank you all so much. I wish you the best on clear skies. I got to go check on my imaging tonight to see how things are going. I'm not sure. I haven't even seen the first image that I started the auto run, what is now about an hour ago. So thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.